Hi, I'm Taylor Lorenz, and you might know me from my best-selling book, Extremely Online, which covers the rise of the content creator industry, or my work covering tech and online culture for some of the biggest news publications out there. But today, I'm excited to announce that I'm leaving legacy media to launch my own new publication on Substack called User Magazine. Under User Mag, I'll be pursuing the type of reporting on the internet that has become increasingly difficult to do in corporate media. User Mag will cover technology from the user side. It's about who has power on the internet and how that power is being wielded. I'll be reporting on the people and movements that steer internet culture, from weird online phenomena to under-the-radar trends to platform developments to the powerful forces shaping our online world. I hope you'll consider buying a yearly subscription to User Mag to help me continue my work. The link is below and in my bio. I'll still be hosting my weekly tech news podcast called Power User, available on all podcast platforms and YouTube, and I'll be ramping up my long-form videos on YouTube as well. But I want to talk about why I'm leaving legacy media and choosing to return to independent journalism. When I started my career as an independent blogger 15 years ago, I had no background in journalism. I was a recent college grad. It was a big recession. I was working retail, temp jobs. I worked at a call center, and I began to build an audience on the internet. I did not go to some fancy journalism school. I did not have industry connections, and I really didn't know that much about traditional news media and how it worked. But I did know they were getting one big story very, very wrong. As somebody who spent a lot of time in early communities on Tumblr and early YouTube, I was so frustrated by the way traditional media was covering the internet. Traditional media smeared at bloggers, they dismissed online fandoms, they ignored the now nearly $500 billion content creator industry, they mocked the communities that women were building online, and they just basically fundamentally were unable to grasp how the internet was upending our culture, economy, and entire political system. Literally just last week on Instagram Threads, traditional journalists were arguing if internet culture reporting is real journalism in the year 2024. Anyway, so I started writing my own stories to provide a counter narrative to the type of coverage that I was seeing in the mainstream media. As digital media arose in the 2010s, a lot of us early bloggers and content creators were scooped up by these old school institutions that, to be honest, kind of previously looked down on us. Legacy media tried desperately to position itself as a credible source for online culture news. But for all their power and prestige, I would argue they have proven themselves fundamentally unable to cover today's chaotic, contentious, fast-paced, and highly nuanced online media landscape. There are so many internet and online culture stories that the traditional media has failed to cover well. I was thinking of Gamergate recently because it started almost 10 years ago exactly, in August 2014, and it became this watershed moment in online culture. And it really revealed just how little traditional media understood the dynamics of the internet. The traditional press struggled to cover this story, not because they didn't have the resources, but because they fundamentally failed to understand online culture. And I would argue they still don't. There's a reason that some of the biggest internet culture stories today, from crypto scams to bad behavior from YouTube's biggest stars to thoughtful cultural commentary about online niches, comes from content creators, not the traditional media. And I don't think that's a failure or reflection on the many brilliant and amazing journalists still working in the traditional world. Literally every tech reporter I've worked with has been so amazing and brilliant, and there are so many talented internet culture reporters who have been laid off because the business model of legacy media is so fundamentally broken. There's also a lot of really amazing editors at certain places that get it. But we now live in this world where politicians can post their way into office, where memes fuel the stock market, where the boundaries between mainstream culture and internet culture are so deeply intertwined that it's impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. The internet isn't just another beat. It's a living, breathing ecosystem that transforms rapidly and unpredictably. The pace, the culture, the very nature of how information spreads online is so fundamentally different than anything that ever came before it. And legacy media in its current form is simply not built to cover this world. These institutions were designed for a different era, where news was slower, more centralized, where a few gatekeepers could control the narrative, where reporters certainly didn't have direct access to their audiences in the same way, and where institutional power prevailed. But the internet has blown all of that up. And as the landscape has evolved, it has become clear to me that the legacy media is no longer the right primary environment for the type of work that I want to do. I've always operated in this weird liminal space where I've been labeled a content creator, an influencer, as much as a journalist. And the truth is that I'm both. I've always been both. But the legacy media is not set up for people like me. In today's media environment, these silly distinctions between who's a real content creator or a real journalist are so meaningless. We're all part of the same media ecosystem. We can all have a voice online. And I don't need a job at a 200-year-old institution to reach reach people, break news, and have an impact on the world. The journalists I'm most inspired by today are those who have taken their voices back into their own hands. Independent content creators who challenge powerful institutions and carve out their own space in a crowded media landscape. By going independent, I hope to do more of what I love, helping people understand the world around them, inspiring them to build a better internet, exposing online radicalization, holding power to account, and also just having a lot more fun. I want to do all of this without worrying about some corporate overlord and without the constraints of institutions that at times are more concerned with optics than challenging power. I want to write freely and speak directly to people on YouTube, TikTok, my podcast. I want to run my silly meme pages. I also firmly believe that this era of faux neutrality in journalism is over. I will always be upfront and honest about my perspectives and where I'm coming from. And you might disagree with me, and I actually might be wrong some of the time, but I'd rather hear that than pretend that I'm not a human being with certain perspectives on the world. To me, this transparency is the essence of trust in journalism. Unfortunately, I'm not independently wealthy. I have rent to pay, living expenses, significant medical costs. I have zero investors and no corporate backing. So if you're watching this video, I sincerely hope that you buy a paid subscription to User Magazine to support my work on YouTube and off. The link is in my bio and in the description below. I really want to make most of the work that I do available without a paywall, but I can only do that if I get enough paid subscribers to cover my costs. The internet has given us the tools to tell our own stories, to reach audiences directly, and to build something new. That's what I intend to do, and I hope you'll support me on this journey by sharing this video, smashing the subscribe or follow button, and buying a paid subscription to User Mag. Thank you, and see you out there.